Hi, and welcome to NeuroWomen Natter. Me, Charlie Hart, and this week I've given Tony a little break and brought in a guest, a very special guest. He's been on my podcast, my awesome Charlie, before, but I think this is the first time on NeuroWomen Natter. In honour of Disability Pride Month, we have this fabulous Melanie Costas. Please feel free to introduce yourself, Melanie.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for inviting me on, Charlie. So first of all, I'm just going to describe myself. I am female, white, with wearing grey glasses, pink hair and a pink top. And my name is Melanie Costas, and I am a lived experience speaker and an accessibility and inclusion specialist.
Thank you very much. And in the spirit of that introduction, I will describe myself as well. So I'm Charlie Hart, also known as Awesome Charlie. I am a middle-aged woman, 50 years old, with straight blonde hair and a blue top. And behind me is a rainbow mural and a couple of, that side, a couple of bass guitars. I love it when I join a client call and they realise that that is my actual wall, not a Zoom background. But you've got a very tasteful shade of sage green in your background as well. I'll just say.
Yeah, it's actually supposed to be. Whoa, hold on, neuro brain buffering. I think it's mint macaroon. There we go. If anybody likes.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
I've got a fan remote because it was boiling hot last week, so that's still on the.
Excellent. I love that neuro brain buffering. I just had to restart my laptop before we came on because it told me it was out of memory RAM. It's talking about random access. Can you tell us a little bit what some of your identities, including the really exciting new one in the new club that I've welcomed you into?
Yeah, I mean, what I do basically in a nutshell is help organisations from solopreneurs to, bigger businesses be more accessible and inclusive, basically. And a lot of people are kind of frightened of it because they don't want to inadvertently offend somebody and get something wrong. But actually, it's for everybody, not just for people that are disabled. It's, like you said, people that are neurodivergent. It's people that might struggle in social situations. People might, you need to be able to work for and work with an organisation where you feel welcomed, basically. And that's what I help with in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a very good job you do too with it, I must say. I've seen videos of your keynote speeches and they're bang on. And I also have a copy of your inclusion survival guide, which I refer to myself, and I find it really useful. And I think a lot of times there's organisations who are full of good intentions when it comes to inclusion, but don't necessarily know exactly how to execute it. So it's really good to have that kind of reference guide. And sometimes it might be, you've thought of something like, for example, a conference might have a quiet room, which is a great idea. But if there's no way of escaping out of the main room to get into there, because there's not enough space to get out without having to push past people or walk down an aisle where there's a video camera filming the stage. And then when you get to the quiet room, there's no screen or anything. So you are completely on your own rather than being part of it, but not in the crowd.
Yeah.
It's like inclusion done a little bit, but not quite enough that we feel included.
I think the main thing, Charlie, is that people with lived experience aren't sitting around the table whenever accessibility and inclusion is discussed, right? Totally. So what we've done, Claire Peacock and myself, and Claire is the colour at Inner, that's what she calls herself. She does all the design stuff, all the techie stuff that it just I don't have that skill set for. So together we've combined our assets, so to speak, into this handy guide, as you've already had and found it's made a difference to you, where people can easily access, how to make their business more accessible and inclusive. And that's from their content, to their website, to the events that they put on, either in person or online, everything and anything, to even font size and how to do stuff in Canva. Claire does that as well. And it's relatable. We give like real business examples because, you know, nobody's got time really to be sitting on Google for hours or go down rabbit holes with Claude, ChatGPT, nothing against them, but they're not built with lived experience. So you're not really going to get what you're looking for there. And you're going to spend hours getting extremely probably tied up in all sorts of DEI knots. And it doesn't have to be so complicated. So little things that you can do, that you can change, it's kind of like little light bulbs going off, isn't it? I think that's what you found when you used it.
Yeah, it is. It filled in a lot of gaps and very accessible way as well. So could you tell me a bit more about your lived experience and, you know, what's brought you into the world of disability advocacy and accessibility? I obviously know this already because I've known you for a while now. Oh, Claire's in the comments as well. Great.
Oh,
she says,
lovely.
been working with Melanie Costas on the guide. Great, been great working. Yeah. I'm dyslexic today. I'm not usually.
Don't worry.
Been great working with Melanie Costas on the guide, just trying to make it easy for everyone, and you have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a brilliant guide, and Claire's brilliant at doing all the techie stuff, which I can't do. And I've sent her quite a few gifts of, you know, people chucking their hammer to the computer, because that's probably what I'd do if it was left to me. I did to Claire the other day that we'd have to walk around with sandwich boards if it was left to me to do the tech stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my background with disability and neurodivergence isn't exactly an easy ride. First off, with the physical disabilities, that is really difficult, because trying to get somebody to listen to you in the first place in a 10-minute GP appointment. Oh yeah, lots of people have, mine are mostly spinal disabilities for people that don't know. And I've got a rare one that I was born with called Bertolotti syndrome. And probably not heard of it. When I was first told, I thought they said Berlotti, which is like the olive oil.
Olive oil. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got an olive oil back, thanks. But yeah, basically, you've got a limited amount of time to talk to a specialist, healthcare professional, and they're mostly not really in tune with it. Because when people think about disabilities, they think about the global symbol, which is somebody in a wheelchair, and that's only representative of 8%, of the disability population, people that are disabled. So it took me quite a few years, up until I was in my 40s, to be told, oh yeah, you've got Bertolotti syndrome, which in layman terms, I have to use my hands here. So that's my spine, and my hip is joined to my spine on one side. Now, Bertolotti can be both sides or one side, and mine's one side. Yeah. And I have to do this to make sure, right side is the right side, and it's a large segment. And that basically means that where it's joined, where it shouldn't be joined, my back's out of alignment all the time. So it causes me chronic pain daily. Now, I haven't had a day off pain since 2008, which people find hard to believe. And all other problems as well. And I got diagnosed with hypermobility or hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is another quite rarely talked about. I don't know if it's rare, but it's a rarely talked about disability.
I think a lot of people have that and don't know.
Yeah.
And there's a huge correlation between that and autism.
Yes.
It's almost like if you're autistic and hypermobile, they should just screen you for it.
Yeah, and there's something else, POTS, I think, as well. And I can't remember what it's called. I'm a bit acronym. I'm really bad with acronyms. Yeah. Heads they call hypermobility.
Tachycardia, isn't it? It's
something, yeah.
It's a heart thing.
Yeah, it basically means you're dizzy, and you can be prone to sort of, you know, falling over and being out of breath, and it's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, I didn't find any of these out until my 40s, and I'm now 56. God, 56.
Don't look it.
Yeah. I think it's the peak hair. Yeah. But yeah, and then I started to then think, hold on a minute. I've always been an overthinker, and somebody that thinks to myself, have I said the wrong thing? Have I overshared? It's going on in my brain right now. Don't say too much, Melanie, because you're going to bore the pants off people. all of these things are called.
Do you know, I'll just interject there to say, I wouldn't have invited you to talk if I didn't want you to talk. Like, no one's put a gun to my head. I've invited you.
Yeah, the check's in the post, Charlie. Yeah. But yeah, it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And I learned about this like almost 2 years ago with somebody else in our WhatsApp group called Samantha Garston, the period princess.
Oh, one of my other besties.
Yeah, she just mentioned it. And I was like, what? What's this? And then it suddenly made sense. And ever since then, I've kind of been coming slowly off the fence thinking, I think I'm neurodivergent because I don't actually interpret the world and experience the world how other people do, and internally and externally, and all sorts of things that I think that maybe I'm broken or there's something wrong with me. As a child, I was called clumsy and didn't pay attention in class. And if only Melanie would apply herself was always the reports, right?
It's on every ADHD report.
So I decided to go forward and get a kind of diagnosis. I was self-diagnosed myself, really, but I really thought, okay, I'm going to get off the fence now and get myself diagnosed. And as you know, it was really quite hard because firstly, you have to get the GP to agree. So they agree. I did one with Choose and Book and the other one with the NHS. So with ADHD, I did the NHS route, which is about a 5 or 6 year wait, I was told.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll look forward to welcoming you into Club Shiny then in about a decade.
Yeah. And then following your recommendations, Charlie, I went with Right to Choose and chose a brilliant organisation called Problem Solved. I keep calling them
Problem Shared. Problem Shared, or one word.
Yeah, I've got it round. I always get it wrong, but they solve everything anyway. So that's what I thought. That's why Solved is in my head. Problem Shared. Now, two completely different experiences. The NHS one with ADHD, they sent me all these forms and I was just executive dysfunction on steroids. So I got completely overwhelmed and I couldn't do it. So I wrote back to them and said, can I have some help? Now, the letter came back with all the forms with just a little bit of writing at the top, highlighted in yellow highlighter. These forms have got to be back by this date. No offer of help, nothing. So me being me, I just thought, well, F it then. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother. And I let the
That's
day
what they want. That's how they reduce their waiting lists, and yet they're still 6 years long.
So then with a Choose and Book, that happened within 9 months. But the forms that I got from me being accepted by them to the diagnosis of autism, which I had in May, which was a real relief. But the forms all came, similar forms, and I was like, help, and they helped. So I got a completely different response. I think we filled the forms out in stages on like an hour phone call each time. Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
There was no wrong answers, Melanie. You know, don't worry. If I go off on a tangent, it's fine. We'll make notes somewhere else. It was absolutely brilliant. And when
they helped you through the process, didn't they? Rather than using your difficulty filling in forms.
Absolutely. It's not really that difficult filling in the forms. It's just the overwhelm of it all coming at you all at once. So yeah, that was really it. So yeah, and then I sort of think, well, I don't want to fill it in wrong, and then I don't fill it in at all because of that fear. But yeah, that experience. So then when I was diagnosed, I actually felt like crying to the clinicians because it's just relief. It was relief. And the response I've got from my dad, who I reckon is, I'm not a clinician, but I reckon my dad's ADHD or whatever it is, autistic and ADHD, I say it.
ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD.
Or our friend Renee Venus, she calls it ADHDistic.
Yes.
If you're more ADHD than you are autistic.
Yeah. But he was like, they're both ex-teachers. No, we've taught kids that are autistic. You're not autistic. I'm like, Mum and Dad, I am because I've been assessed and I am. Then it goes back to this perception of, you know, we're talking about Disability Pride Month, of misinformation and disinformation, because, you know, I just sort of pictured autism before I got involved with this wonderful WhatsApp group. You know, what we're told in the media and society, it's either Rain Man or it's that kid from The Sixth Sense that sees dead people.
Yeah.
There's nothing in between. You're either, or you're non-verbal, you know, or something like that. And there isn't that kind of picture of what, just as there isn't of a disability, there isn't of autism and ADHD. It's, you know, ADHD is portrayed as that's the kid that just wants attention and does naughty things. It's not that at all.
Disruptive,
You know,
wants it still.
yeah, all of the negative stuff. You know, it's always the bloody negative stuff. But yeah, my experiences, so my lived experiences, actually being neurodivergent and disabled on the ground in the real world has been hit and miss, with mostly being negative, if I'm completely honest. So, you know, I always have special assistants, for example, at the airport, because there's no way I can fly otherwise. And I've been in the queue for special assistants, and there's been somebody with a stick or an elderly person, and they're gone, "What's wrong with you then?" Honestly, out loud. Oh. So, of course, me being me, I just say, I have something called a hidden disability. I'm not sure you know, but this lanyard, which is the sunflower around my neck, represents hidden disabilities. And not all disabilities are visible. I mean, the poor person that's working in the assistance team doesn't know what to say, you know, but I just say that. But yeah, it's just the kind of ableism that is out there in society. And then combine that with our own internal, or my own, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, my own internal ableism, where I don't want to let people down because of my disability, or I don't want to say no because I'm neurodivergent and I can't do whatever it is. And it's taken me a long time to actually be Melanie,
Yeah.
Right up there. So getting that diagnosis, as with the diagnosis of all my disabilities, and it became a standing joke, I'll tell you that in a minute. But getting those diagnoses is kind of like, okay, it's not my fault. I was born with my disabilities. I was born with my neurodivergence. I didn't go to a shop that disabilities are us and neurodivergence are us and pick something off the shelf. You know, that's it. That's me. That is who I am. And masking is exhausting. And I'm just done with it. And I'm not saying it's all perfect and tickety-boo now, because I still do. Yeah. I think we all kind of present a different way when we first meet somebody. I think that's kind of built into it.
So, yeah.
But not afraid to speak out and say, like when you and I met in real life for the first time at Michelle Hartley's wonderful event, her first Great Geek Together.
A Great Geek Together 2 years ago. She's currently selling tickets for the one this September in Birmingham. If anyone wants to go, recommend.
And it was the most inclusive and accessible event I've ever been to in my life, ever. So at that, whenever there was people speaking, I had a different chair because the usual normal standard conference chairs hurt my back. That was fine, not a problem. I got offered, I think, 3 different chairs to choose from. And then there was these kind of poof things, or poof, I can't blooming pronounce that either, all lined up, just decoration. I asked if they could be put together so I could lay on them, so I could take the pressure off my spine. Nobody batted an eyelid. In fact, somebody came over and said, would you like, something over you, if you, sort of to be more comfortable. And
I remember,
nice. It was
you were lying down at the back of the room watching the final keynote, and you could see from there. It's not like you were put in some medical bay or something.
And
you were part of it. And you've got Kirsty walking around as well around you because she can't sit still and pay attention.
Yes. Yeah, and it was all down to Michelle being the event organizer that made that possible, that everybody felt welcome. And everybody felt like they could just, move around. And I think she said that, didn't she, a number of times, feel free to move around and leave the room. And she had the quiet room with the screen as well. So you didn't feel like if you go to the quiet room, you're going to be excluded and isolated. But and those are kind of the things that we talk about in the Inclusion Survival Guide as well. Tips, real life, relatable stuff that you can do at your events. It doesn't have to be expensive and ridiculous. Things that you've got to get in for the disabled people. And if we look at the stats, around 1 in 4 people live with a disability, and around 1 in 5, but I think it's more, live with some kind of neurodivergent disorder. But,
yeah.
you know.
If you take into account that neurodivergent means that anyone whose cognitive functioning varies from the societal idea of typical or normal, and it explicitly includes differences in how you think and feel and process that are caused by mental health conditions as well. So it's not even just the lifelong innate neurodevelopmental ones. It's a huge chunk of the population. And then as you get older, the more likely you are as well, because you can deliberately change the way that your mind works. There's neuroplasticity.
Yes. Yeah, and you talked about mental health, and that's really important because that's something else that I have lived experience in. Now, I in between lockdowns, I found a lump in my breast and discovered that quite quickly that I got a diagnosis of breast cancer. That was enough to take in, but the next day I had to go in for biopsies and was told, and these are the words from the oncologist that are ingrained into my brain, "I'm really sorry, but your breast is riddled with cancer and it's a threat to your life." At that point, I believe, now I've had lots of therapy, that my brain shut down. And I just dealt with what I needed to do next, which was mastectomy, which was recovery from that, which was then go on a list for reconstruction, because I chose reconstruction rather than implant. And I actually, 6 months after my diagnosis, and I'm very mental health aware, didn't see it coming, had a complete mental breakdown. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, which was later then recategorized as CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just that one trauma, it was the straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing.
Yeah, I have that as well.
And the interesting thing there is that I actually, at the time of the diagnosis, couldn't have access to therapy because I had too much trauma for trauma therapy. That's what I was told. Now, the NHS were really good. I did have, it's another acronym and I can never remember them. I do apologise. EMDR, which is like that.
EMDR, yeah.
I had that and it was transformational for me. I went from having hallucinations, panic attacks, nightmares, and my life just being horrendous, to all of that being completely under control, which, you know, was life-changing for me. So, yeah, I mean,
I don't know what it stands for either, but I thought I'll just put it on the screen in case anyone wants to make a note of it.
Yeah.
It is something that I've been told is particularly effective with autistic people with trauma and mental health conditions caused by
it
trauma.
worked well for me then, because although it did take 2 sessions, it normally takes 1 for us to get through one of the major traumas that I had, all in 1 session, which was quite a worry to the therapist because obviously she didn't want to leave me in the middle of reliving something. But yeah,
I've had psychodynamic therapy and that worked really well for me.
Yes.
About traumas that were locked up for 10 years before they came out of nowhere and I had no idea.
Wow.
Anyway, massive tangent. I knew we would be having hugely tangential conversations because ADHD conversations, they're like a meandering river with a bunch of streams going off them. But I was just going to say Tony Horn, who's my regular co-host, has just asked, what's your opinion about Manchester Airport now disregarding the sunflower lanyard?
Yeah.
So if I could firstly answer that, because I've been sucked into this debate already. I don't know what their exact stance is, because some people I know have been told that their policy hasn't changed, but then a lived experience advocate who's autistic and ADHD was told to use any lane rather than the access lane. I don't know whether she booked transport assistance in advance and could have done, but I think that you can't judge an entire organisation by what happened on one particular day, because it could be they had someone that was badly trained that was having an off day. I don't know. So I'd really like to hear a statement from Manchester Airport before I chip in. But I would also say that I've noticed that person get really viciously attacked by an anti-neurodiversity type person, and that I'm absolutely not okay with that at all.
No,
So,
that's terrible. I mean,
yeah.
I'm like you. I'd like to know why Manchester Airport have done that and their reasons behind it, and if they've got something alternative in place. But I'd just like to add to the fact that not all airports have it anyway. I understand. I mean, my nearest airport is Bournemouth. I haven't ever flown there, but I fly from Bristol because it's near my parents and it's easier. Bristol Airport does have it. Well, it did in May when we last flew. But if you don't book the assistance, you can't go ahead into and use those lanes.
Yes.
As far as I'm aware.
So
because
the sunflower lanyard alone is not enough. But
yeah.
if you book travel assistance, then they will still give you that access.
Yeah, and if you haven't booked it, just in their defence, if you haven't booked it, you didn't even know that, because not everybody knows that there is this. And you can actually then just say, look, can somebody help me? And they will go out of their way to try and help you. You know, I have had really good experiences with Bristol Airport, apart from when we flew back from the last holiday, which, you know, I'm in the middle of them, and you know, it wasn't very good. But that's something just doesn't normally happen. But generally, as a rule, they are quite good at, you know, being quite proactive. And if they see people struggling, like my mum was struggling to breathe, and they came over. This is in airport security, you know, they came over, got her a chair and sat her down. You know, I just think that if people they're obviously trained, and I think that's what you were saying. It goes back to the training. I think if there's more awareness training on what is and what isn't a disability, and maybe to kind of pick up on some signals, because not everybody wants to wear a lanyard, knows about a lanyard, or, you know, is comfortable wearing one.
So I do sometimes, but I wouldn't wear one on the train, because I do sometimes wear them on the train, but if I decided not to, or someone else wasn't comfortable, I completely understand why, because I've seen people get bullied and harassed. I've seen an autistic man with learning difficulties as well actually be really viciously bullied. And it's just one more thing that will have attracted that group's attentions to him, I think, which is a real shame. But we have to feel safe before we can be openly disabled or openly neurodivergent. We have to feel that we're physically safe and psychologically safe in that environment. And just sadly, it's not always the case.
And we don't know, do we, either, ahead of things? I mean, it's all right, people saying, well, tell us about your disability or your neurodivergent, or tell us in advance. But that doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get the reception that you want or need, your needs met.
We might forget to do things like that as well, being ADHD. Yeah. I'm flying to Dusseldorf next week for my first international in-person keynote.
Oh, wow.
I've done loads of international online ones, but this one I'm going to their head office. Wow. And I just had a thought yesterday. I haven't applied for a visa, and I was in right panic. You don't need one to travel from the UK to Germany for a short-term period. But I was thinking, oh no, I've dropped a ball. ADHD tax strikes again. That's very real.
Disability and ADHD tax, definitely, absolutely. I mean, when we're looking at disabled facilities, that's another thing that really does infuriate me, if you want me to be honest. Whilst I agree that everything needs to be wheelchair accessible, that what I said earlier, only 8% of disabled people are, wheelchair users. I have used a wheelchair on and off. I don't at the moment, but I did for 2 years. And, it needs to be wheelchair height and wheelchair accessible. But at the same time, if I want to go and use a disabled toilet, so let's say in a restaurant the toilets are upstairs, but the disabled toilet is downstairs. Mostly it is, great. The sink is like below my waist.
Yeah.
So somebody with spinal disabilities like me, to try and wash my hands, I've got to sit back on the bloody toilet, stretch over. I can't bend. If I bend at that angle, I'm in absolute agony. So it would just take something simple like 2 sinks, or a sink that,
Yeah.
you know, well, they're expensive, the ones that move, but just another sink when you're putting the plumbing in. There's
just taking someone with lived experience in to have a look at the design before it's built, not as an afterthought.
Blueprints. It's blueprints, though. The blueprints for a disabled toilet and disabled access facilities are that of those measurements. So it's kind of like the regulations and the legislative stuff that they built that have to comply with the building compliance or whatever it is, states that you have to have it like that. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, it needs reviewing then. I think we're constantly evolving and changing and learning new things and developing new technologies, and we just need to keep reviewing this stuff and changing it where we can.
Definitely.
But, we've technically run out of time, although I'm happy to overrun. But I was just going to make this point that it's really refreshing to me to talk to someone who can be very real and honest about the difficulties of living with disabilities and cancer and neurodivergence and various things, without trying to put some glossy sheen on it.
Yeah.
But you're also very positive leaning and very proactive. You're not one polar extreme or other. You've got the full range of emotions, and I think that's really important for Disability Pride Month, because to me, Pride isn't about showing off or anything. It's not about, if people think we're collecting labels or something, we've got a label multipass. It's not about that. To me, it's about refusing to be ashamed for who we are and our characteristics and our needs, and being open about it. And
yeah, definitely. And
it's a lot to ask in a society where people will make us feel like we're less worthy, or that there's some moral judgment or value judgment, because human beings are all equal to me. My brother, I don't think I'm better than him because I don't have his cognitive impairments. I think we're all human beings and we all bring something different to the table. So I think let's be real, but let's be proud as well.
Exactly. And the things that I kind of cringe a little bit with Disability Pride Month is when people are sort of wheeled out as superheroes.
Yeah.
My previous LinkedIn title was a pink-haired warrior, and I didn't really like it because, okay, I can be a warrior, but I'm not really. I'm living in a body that's FUCKED'd, and I'm making the best of it. And at the end of the day, it's not a superpower that I'm neurodivergent. I'm not a superhuman that I live every day in pain and chronic pain and just get on with it. I've chosen to think, I could, if you looked at my rap sheet, as I call it, my MRI and my scans, you would be looking at that, and then you'd be expecting a patient to walk in the door that was bedbound. Now, I probably should be, but I've got the attitude of, right, while I can do stuff, I'm going to do stuff. I do get, we've talked about disability and neurodivergent tax. I do get that, but I allow for it. I build that into my diary. So like if I was you and I was going to an international speaking event, I would factor in that I'm probably going to need 3 days rest.
Go the night before, take your daughter with you.
Like I did.
Need to be transferred in a taxi or picked up from the airport, all these things.
Yeah.
And being able to ask for that and know that you're not, you don't think that people are going to think you're a pain in the arse, that this is the reality of being a disabled speaker. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, definitely, because, you know, generally professional speakers that don't have lived experience of a disability or neurodivergence don't have all of these things to contend with. And if you've never experienced hiring or, you know, having a lived experience speaker come on board, you need to be prepared that there are these things that they might, you know, the conversation might go in that direction, that you actually, somebody else might be able to drive 3 hours each way to the event. I need to stay overnight, so I'm not getting back. So
I need to stay overnight the night before, or I'm going to be so stressed about not time that I won't be at my best.
Yeah, exactly. And generally, I've had a really good response from that. The only thing I would say is that we do need to treat people with lived experience as the experts that they are. Yeah. And not just go, well, you haven't got, you can't actually get a qualification in being multiple disabilities and, you know, neurodivergence and mental illness. If you could, I don't think there would be a university, but you can't actually even get any qualifications. But we are qualified in our experiences. I call it my veritable PhD in lived experience because it's so varied, and we need to be paid in accordance to our experience. And you've probably had this, but I get umpteen inquiries. Come and speak at our global conference. La 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 la. Yeah, okay. What's the I can't say it. What's the speaker's fee? Remuneration. Thank you.
What a stupid word. Why is the M and the N the wrong way around?
Exactly that. Yeah. What is that? And then I get told, oh no, it's exposure for you. Okay, so I've got to pay for my own.
How many exposures is your mortgage at the moment?
And people are paying a lot of money to go to these events, and I'm one of your headliners that they're paying to see, but you don't want to pay me? Okay, then. So we're not going to go there. So yeah, it just needs to be thought through a bit more, and that people are a bit more valued that have lived experience. Yeah, definitely. But
I mean, I do okay because most of my clients are corporate, but I have been approached by people that think that I'll speak at their closed events and not a free to the public one for their staff for like 50p and a bunch of grapes. Not literally, but no, I think a £50 Amazon voucher I was offered. And that's the most insulting offer since Adrian Mole offered Sharon Botts 50p and a bag of grapes on the first date. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Adrian Mole.
Yeah.
He's autistic as well, and so is the author. But
anyway,
I've got to say it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the live stream again, and we could talk for another hour, but I don't want to bore all our audience. So come back another time, please, and keep being the fabulous and real and spiky and sparkly you. And
thank you.
And look after yourself.
Thank you.
See you soon. And thank you very much for everyone that joined us as well. See you next time.